Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Thanks, Scott. Yes, I'm excited to welcome JJ Villar to the podcast today. He's a friend and someone who I look up to. He's a really good guy. However, I'm going to give a little bit more of a formal introduction here. JJ is a motivational speaker, confidence and high performance coach, and a creative artist who empowers executive assistants, entrepreneurs, and business owners to step into their true leader. With a background in performing arts, which we're going to talk about, this is really cool, JJ teaches emotional intelligence strategies, the art of powerful questions, and personal development techniques that promote work-life balance and healthy lifestyles. JJ's expertise includes self-discipline, influence, and persuasion, innovation, and resourcefulness and mindset. By shifting their identity and unleashing their inner artists, executive assistants can tap into their best version of themselves. Now, I also want to add that it's not only executive assistants. Don't be turning us off for the fact that you're not an executive assistant. What JJ has to share with the world, I believe, is applicable to everyone. He's a very motivational person. He has a personality that when you meet him, you want to be his friend. And I consider JJ a friend and will always be his friend, whether he likes it or not. So welcome to the podcast, JJ.
Man, it is great to be here. Thank you so much, Jason Scott. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your platform and add value to your listeners, your community. And it's good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. So I want to know, and everybody will also want to know, you have had some pretty prestigious experience in the entertainment industry. For example, who's the most famous person that you have worked with in your dancing and choreography?
Myself. No. No, I was waiting to be able to say that sometime in my life. So, but yeah, actually the most famous person, it's, I guess, depending on when you ask me, I would have changed my answer. Most famous person, I would say, would be Gloria Gaynor. And the reason why I say that is because this woman, if you're not familiar with who that is, she's saying, "I will survive." The reason why, for me, it's one of the most famous people is because it doesn't matter what generation you're in. It doesn't matter what age. You have heard that song at one point or another. And so fame is relevant, and it really is perspective. In regards to somebody that most people would know would be Michael Jackson. So again, it's one of those things for me. That fame came in from somebody who had shaped music in so many different ways through so many different generations. So I would say those would be two of the people that I have had the honor and the blessing to work with.
So a follow-up question, who's been the funnest to work with?
Oh, okay. The funnest. I would say Toni Braxton.
And why is that?
Well, if she doesn't kill me if she ever hears this, but she is she is probably the most insecure artist I've ever worked with, in regards to having such a perfectionist mentality that she was nervous as she learned new things to be around her dancers or her production team, to the point where we would have to rehearse with her between myself, the artistic director, and a producer in a private room with the blinds shut, and making sure that she had everything that she needed before anybody else could come into the room and rehearse with her. She wanted to just be perfect so that people saw her as the image that we know of the great Toni Braxton. But the reality of it was she was just like everybody else, insecure, self-doubting. She had a kid heart. It was quite endearing.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, from where you grew up to what got you into the industry, what you were doing, and then you've made quite a change from the entertainment world to now in a coaching, a mindset, which is truly really important for our audience. In fact, we always talk about in the outro that mastering your millions all starts in your mind and your team. Make sure they're the best. And so this team mentality that you have coaching teams, how did you transfer? And I mean, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, so I'll give you the highlight reel and the cliff notes. So coming from South America, Bogota, Colombia, being part of a well-off family, and I just grew up with a lot of abuse. I had alcoholic parents, as well as abusive verbally, mentally, emotionally, as well as being around seeing sexual abuse. I ran away from home at 15 at a young age once we got to the US. And I dropped out of high school and went through the street gang banging route, dealing drugs on the street. And it's something that not necessarily that I'm proud of, but I would never change in a million years, just because it taught me my entrepreneurial skills. It taught me the survival skills of what we normally don't learn, especially life skills that they don't teach you in high school or schooling at all. I know this because through my trials and tribulations of growing up from being a street kid, I ended up getting myself through night school, ended up somehow, ironically enough, going to the corporate world as a clerical assistant to an accounting firm. My father used to be a CPA. So in order for me to be able to hang out with my father at a young age, I was 8 years old, sitting on his bedside in his home office, doing clerical work and filing taxes with him. I never got toys for Christmas. I got tax returns. So even though I was a high school dropout and I had street smarts, I fudged my way through a resume and went into a firm because I knew that skill, and landed a job that put me as a 15-year-old kid with a fake ID into a corporate job and a suit and a tie with an assistant into a cubicle, pretending like I knew what I was doing. And so needless to say, I was still living the gang life and the thug life, let's just say, to where I was still slinging weed on the side until my house got raided. Cops came into the office and I was arrested. My friends were deported, and things started going downhill after that. I found my way in and out of jail a few times for dumb things, and realized that if I didn't do a quick mind shift and a life altering change, that I was going to stay in jail or end up dead. And so fast forward years in advance, or years later, I became a high school teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, I put myself through night school, and I was always a performer. Coming from South America, the number one thing that I used to get on TV was Michael Jackson videos. And so as a young kid, from as far as I could remember, even before I could walk, I was just always a performer, and that was just in me. It was in my blood for whatever reason. And I would always mimic Michael Jackson. I never once thought that I'd be a professional dancer in the arts. And I swore up and down that one day I was going to do something great like that. And for me, a kid from a third world country, seeing Michael Jackson, the biggest star back in the 80s, that was my goal. And so I was always dancing. So imagine, I was a really crappy gangster. Like, I would gang bang in the day and I would moonlight and perform at night. And I would go, and this was back in the day where we would like street perform, literally with either a tub or a hat or some kind of bucket on the street to dance for change. And I was always just a hustler. I was always somebody who was resourceful. And when I got myself through night school, before I dropped out of high school, I was doing professional marching band, or I was doing marching band in high school. And then I went to professional marching band, which is called drum corps. I won my first couple of world championship titles. Because I got world championship titles, I got invited to come and direct marching band programs in different high schools. Back then, there was a loophole where I could become a high school teacher without actual credentials and or a college degree. And so I kind of weaved my way in, and I started teaching high school bands and music appreciation. And I was assistant band director and teaching color guards for about 7 years through the LAUSD and Orange County. And as I was doing that, I met somebody. I was still kind of doing bad stuff on the side, helping myself make money, going and teaching at school. So I had these double lives. And I guess you could say it was almost in a really off way, my millionaire mindset on having multiple streams of income. They just weren't necessarily all ethical. And then I ended up meeting somebody as I was teaching Lancaster High School, I believe it was. I met the drum instructor for the marching band, and he happened to be Michael Bolton's drummer. And so I asked him, how did you go from being a band geek, which that's what we all identified as, to being this mainstream, drummer for such a huge artist? And he gave me the phone number to an entertainment company. He said, give them a call. They're always looking for dancers. At this time, I had never taken an official dance class in my life. I wasn't necessarily in the industry. And so I called them, dropped his name. They sent me on an audition. That was the first audition I ever really went on. I booked the audition. I was like, oh, wow, I better actually take a dance class and figure out what this is. And so I went to the biggest dance studio in the world at that time, Millennium Dance Complex in Hollywood, where all the celebrities, all the stars would go to. I took my first dance class there. 2 weeks later, I started teaching there as a dance instructor. My ability was always learning quick. And because I had always been a street dancer, street dancing and studio dancing and choreography dancing is completely different things. Fast forward, I met one person from doing a show who landed me an agent. I got represented and started building my name and reputation as a dancer and a choreographer in the entertainment business in Hollywood. Now, at this time, I was still being a high school teacher, and then now doing auditions, doing things on MTV, doing tours and spot dates with different artists. And it got to the point where I was 3 years away from tenure in my high school teaching career. And because I looked so young at that time, I would always have to walk around with lanyards around the schoolyard. And I remember the principal that where I was teaching at the time had a conflict of interest because, the students would see me performing with different artists. And so I was losing somewhat of my authority as a teacher there. And they said, do you want to continue teaching or do you want to be an artist? And I kind of said, you know what, I want to be an artist, never looked back. I stopped being a high school teacher and I just didn't believe that that how we teach the youth is very beneficial to what real life is. And I had differences of opinion on the curriculums and things that we were required to do. And so I kind of took a gamble. At this time, I started letting go of my street thug life. I let go of being a teacher, and I just focused on being an artist. And I really focused on being an artist as of 1998, I think it was. Building an entertainment company. I started working with the biggest names in music, traveling the world, doing concerts, doing music videos, stage performances from all different countries, all different parts of the world. And it was something that I never foresaw happening. And fast forward to towards the end of my career, after Michael Jackson passed away, I was one of the last remaining dancers that was selected by his family to represent his name after he passed when Cirque du Soleil put together the show Michael Jackson won at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. And that was a huge badge of honor because although I didn't get to dance with him like I wanted to as a kid, I got to dance for him. And so it's funny because now in hindsight, I remember as a kid, I would always say, God, I want to dance for Michael Jackson. I want to dance for Michael Jackson. But you don't realize the things that you say come to life. And when they come to life and they come to light, you got to pay attention on how you say them. Because although I said I want to dance for Michael Jackson, I actually did. I should have said I wanted to dance with Michael Jackson. Would have been a different story. So fast forward, I got booked on the biggest show in the world. And I'm one of the main dancers. Then I went from just being one of the dancers to being one of the choreographers, from one of the choreographers to being one of the coaches of the company. So here I am after almost 25 plus years in the entertainment industry, going through this huge transition from this street kid in LA coming from a third world country in South America. And all of a sudden I'm living this millionaire lifestyle. And I'm not talking about monetary. I'm just talking about having a lifestyle that people pay millions of dollars to have or to go see, or getting things for free because I have celebrity clout and recognition and just being able to perform in front of millions of people. And at the end of my circ career, I ended up getting injured. I got injured on stage in 2018 to where I was doing a stunt of flip on stage. I landed wrong. I ruptured 2 vertebrae in my back. I got up in the middle of the performance. I'm seeing stars. I walk off to the wing on stage. I collapse. They take me to the doctors. I go to the hospital, and that was the end of my career. And so that led me down to a negative spiral of loss of identity, to where I didn't know who I was. I was no longer an artist. There was no more fame, lights, paparazzi, autographs. There was no more red carpets. There was no more gifts, none of that stuff. It was all gone. No more friends. You learn that real quick. You spend your whole life building this persona and being this thing or this person people want to be around, to realize what they really want to be around and why they're there. And I lost my income, my 6-figure business, and that took a turn for the worse because all of this took place. The girl I was engaged to at the time left. And so within a span of 2 weeks, my life just flipped to where I decided to go to a red carpet event with a whole bunch of friends. I smoked, snorted, and drank everything I could get my hands on, got behind the wheel of my car and drove into oncoming traffic, praying to God that somebody would hit me. I was so jacked up at that time that I thought that the headlights in front of me were spotlights on stage. And somehow that night's a pretty big blur, but somehow I ended up in the back of a squad car and ended up in jail. And a few days later, after I posted bail, mustered up the last few dollars that I had, got myself out walking back from downtown Las Vegas back to my house. I start scrolling on Instagram, as one does when you're walking back home from jail. With a little bit of battery that you have left, I came across an Instagram ad for Tony Robbins' UPW. And I had heard about Tony Robbins, and I had heard some of his stuff on podcasts and kind of read one of his books. And my ex-wife at the time, she was really into Tony. And so I took a chance. I had about $763, $64, something like that in my bank account. The ticket was $697. And that was on November, I think it was like November 11th, 2019. 2018. And I prayed to God, and I was like, my life's got to change. And right then and there, I purchased a ticket as I'm walking home. And I said, God, please help me figure out how to make less than $100 in my bank account last from November all the way to March 14th, which was when the UPW event was happening in Los Angeles in 2019. I went to that event and my life changed. And since then, I have dedicated every waking minute, every single dollar in learning different modalities, understanding myself, learning about practical psychology, investing in my person, my growth, to never repeat that sense of loss. And so what that did for me, to answer your question of how I got here, is I started working with some really high profile people, and I got a chance to be coached by the great Les Brown. And he gave me something, a nugget that changed everything for me. And he said, you need to stop following your passion and start listening to your gift. And I couldn't understand what that meant until
Yeah,
I really,
explain that. I'm not sure I
and
do understand that.
exactly. I said the exact same thing. And so I sat there and I was like, okay, stop following my passion and start listening to my gift. And everybody tells us, the gurus, everybody, they say, live with passion, follow your passion, do what you're passionate about, which is not wrong. Okay. It's part of the equation. And so when I started looking at my life, and I gave you kind of like the highlight reel, the cliff notes of where I went, where I came from and what I've gone through. And I started looking at everything, and I was always passionate about being on the limelight, being on stage, dancing, performing, making people feel like I was passionate about being the star. I was passionate about being recognized, having gone through being bullied and being made fun of and being a nobody, to all of a sudden building this persona of this character and this artist that people all of a sudden wanted to be around. And so I became truly passionate about wanting people to want to like me. But then I realized, well, what the hell's my gift? And what I noticed as a young kid, as a gangster, as a drug dealer, as a high school teacher in the corporate world, as an artist, I was always helping people. Always. I was always giving advice. I was always finding a way to help people live happier, healthier, more abundantly, even if I didn't know what that was, even if I didn't have the language, even if I didn't have the skills, or if I didn't have the abundance. My goal was always to help better people. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my gift. My gift is I was always coaching. So to your original question, I've always been a coach. Through every walk of life that I've gone through, I've always coached somebody. Now, I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but that became my gift. And then I understood what less meant. Stop following your passion and start listening to my gift. And so when I started listening to my gift is when I got into the transformational coaching space, to the knowledge industry, to learning different modalities and skills that I can help other people get to a better place in life. And since then, since 2018, I've dedicated every single moment that I can to help people do just that.
When you are coaching people, and there's other coaches out there, what would you say is something about helping people transform their lives that most people don't think about?
For me, the first thing that came up, whether this is right or wrong, I don't know, it's just my truth. It was just living it, consistently living it. And that's what I really truly pride myself of doing. Is I've worked with coaches, I've hired coaches, and I've had coaches that learn the skills, have done it, became successful, and now they teach what they've known, what helped them get there. And it's funny because we're always supposed to help coach our clients by being one step ahead of them. And for me, the thing that I think is the most precious is the constant, never ending evolution and being a student of life and of a constant transformation and evolving. That every time I learn something new, the first thing that I go through is, yes, I get to learn something that I get to coach my clients on, or I get to share with my clients, or anything that bad happens in my life, I don't care anymore. And I'm just like, right now, when something horrific in my life, sure, do I get sad, angry, frustrated, or do I worry? Absolutely. I'm not saying that I'm not human in that sense, but it happens in nanoseconds now, to where as soon as Murphy's Law shows up, I go through the oh shit phase to the yes, I get to figure out how to get through this because I get to help somebody get through it. And I think that for me is one of the most special things, and what a lot of coaches, some coaches miss. They stop evolving, or the thirst and the hunger for the evolution of growth.
So constant growth is one of your mantras.
Oh man, that every single day. If I'm not growing, like Tony says, if you're not growing, you're dying. But I take that to a different level, because being a confidence and high performance coach, It's like, how do you teach somebody to have confidence? And confidence, I honest to God believe that we were all born with confidence. We were conditioned and trained to be fearful. And now we spent a whole life transitioning to get away from that, to go back and understand what our true essence of confidence was. And the reason why I can prove that is why, like, I'm not a father, but I work with enough kids, and I've seen enough friends that have kids that constantly live in the no world, because they say, no, don't stick your finger in a light socket. No, don't jump off the bed this way. No, don't do. They are fearless. They've got natural courage. They don't know it might be courage. They're fearless. So for me, I translate to that being courageous. And so now my constant evolving truth of growth is that I have to do something that scares me every single day. Just like I go to the gym to stay fit. I've got to continue to do that, because if I don't do it, then those things that come that are difficult for me to face, I will lose my courageous skill, my courage muscle. And if I don't train it, then I lose my confidence. I lose my courage.
Can you give us an example? Like, what are you going to do today that's going to give you courage?
Okay, I'll give you, I haven't done one today, but I'll tell you one thing that I did yesterday. I'm horrible at talking to girls. And when I say that,
no way, I don't believe this. Come on, I do not believe this. You can't use that example, man.
Swear
You're
to
telling
God.
me you get nervous talking to girls?
Swear to God, I am the guy, right? And this is horrible as a confidence coach. This is horrible, but this is the best example that I can give you. So my only game growing up was that I was a dancer, right? So I would literally have friends that would invite me out, because they knew that if we were to go out to a club or to a party, that we would get into, somehow the dance floor, and people would all of a sudden start watching me dance, and they would stand on the outskirts talking to the girls that were watching me, and they would use me as their game. Man, isn't he good? And that was the icebreaker, right? So I'm sitting here on the dance floor, sweating bullets, doing the work, and they would go home with a prize, right? So my only game, like, usually people would approach me and talk to me because of that. Now, when it came to seeing a beautiful woman that I found attractive, I was the guy, or what I would say in my mind, my identity was, I was the geek in the corner that I would literally wave and then just run off. Because I didn't have that, I didn't have that bone, I didn't have that skill, I didn't have that courage. And so yesterday, eating lunch at a restaurant, I went out. I'm working on a book right now, and so I went to just go get inspiration, and I saw one of the waitresses. I saw one of the waitresses that otherwise I would normally not talk to, because she wasn't serving my area, and she was gorgeous. And so I got distracted, and I looked at her, and I was like, okay, so how do I talk to her? And I'm going through this huge, like, back and forth with my inner critic of, like, how do I approach her? And I knew that I had to do something that scared me. And so I could not leave the restaurant without going to talk to her. And so as I saw her walking by, I said, excuse me, miss, can I ask you a question? And so then she came and stopped, and I said, so I'm working on a book right now, and I would love to do some market research. And I opened up with that and kind of started talking to her about actually getting real information that I was seeking for my book. But I opened conversation. Now, I didn't really say, oh my God, I find you attractive or this or that. However, but otherwise I wouldn't have talked to her. If I didn't have this a standard that every day I've got to do something, even as small as talking to somebody that I might normally not talk to, I've got to do something that scares me so that I can keep working that muscle.
That's awesome. You said at one point about investing. I heard you talking about investing yourself. I'm assuming that that you believe is the first place that people should invest is in themselves.
100%. I think that everybody's in a different place financially, and I believe that the richest people invest in themselves. And I'm not talking about just monetarily. I'm talking about through knowledge, experience, conversations, relationships, that you invest in figuring out who you are, and developing the greatest part of you, your light. I believe, and this isn't to impose my religious or spiritual beliefs. You know, I'm a Christian. I believe in God, Jesus, and I'm also a very spiritual person and believing in source and connection with the earth. And I believe that we were all born with a light, a gift. And I believe that our mission in life is to go through our human experience, hoping to discover that. And once you discover that, it is figuring out what to do with it. And then when you know what to do with it, then you can figure out how to monetize it. And by monetizing it, you can help other people. And so the reason why I say this is because I believe that that's the best investment for any single person and growth. When you invest in finding out what that is. And so when you start investing in yourself, in knowledge, learning new skills, understanding who you really are, doing the difficult work, asking the difficult questions, which is one of the things that I teach is the art of powerful questions, and being able to look at yourself in reflection where most people hide and live in this mask. I think that that's what really differentiates the wealthy from the average.
I think it's most people know that it doesn't matter where the successful that you want to talk about and at what level they are, they have coaches. I mean, I don't know whether you can answer the question whether Michael Jackson had a dance coach or some sort of coach, but I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, his name was Papin Taco. He was a Mexican, and he was his coach for 14 plus years, among the many other coaches that he had.
Right. And Michael Jordan, I mean, you can go all left and right? They all have coaches. And so I agree with you there that that's one place where, in fact, I have heard someone say recently that they should invest in yourself until you become an accredited investor, right? Because then once you are an accredited investor, you can open up some investments. I mean, Scott and I and this whole podcast has a lot to do with money, right? How to master your money, where to invest, when you start investing. And part of that is saying, that might not be your lane. You know, the right kind of real estate deal may not be your lane. However, when you have your lane and you're good at that lane, then you can invest in a coach in a different lane and help you there. So when you think back over your lifetime and maybe come up with what would you say would be some key people that would be part of your team and your journey? I mean, obviously, maybe a couple. I mean, Tony Robbins sounds like to me might have been significant. Who are some other people that you would say are part of your team?
Well, I have a team of more people that I don't know than I do know, and people that I've
What do you mean?
Meaning that, like, let's say I've invested a lot in Jim Rohn. I don't know him personally, but I know that his teachings, his knowledge, and his value, I relied on a lot, from Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, Grant Cardone, people that are in my immediate circle, C. Savan. I've invested in Frank Boehm. I've invested in right now the person that I'm working with, also Jarek Robbins. He's somebody that I'm also working alongside and learning from. Greg Reed, that's another person that's monumental in my life. And so, but a lot of these people I've never met. And it's because I knew the value and the power of investing. And investing, I can honestly say, my investment skills has never really been from the money side in business opportunities. I've invested in real estate, and gambled with little to no knowledge. I didn't come from that world. Like I mentioned, I came from the street world. I came from the artist world. I came from the hustling, the thugs lifestyle that was really, we didn't learn all that stuff. We didn't learn about investing. And what gives me the millionaire mindset is I've had the honor of working with what I call the miserable millionaire. And what I mean is I knew that I had a millionaire lifestyle, regardless whether my bank account reflected it or not, was that I would work with these high profile people that have millions and millions in the bank, and they just hate life. And all they do is to get, they work and spend their whole time in either investing or working just to get their next millions, to never really appreciate it. Sure, they've got the Bugattis and the cars and the clothes and the girls and this and that, but they're just walking empty shells. And this is not for everybody, but I learned that being a millionaire isn't necessarily just the money that you have in your bank. And it really is the lifestyle. It is the spirituality of it. It is the mentality that you have. And so
The
that's
relationships,
the
the
relation,
friends, yeah,
exactly.
let's go there. I mean, there is so
Yeah,
much more, which is,
the
I really appreciate
relationships.
you bringing that up. I mean, that's a huge thing where we talk about that. Yeah, you want to build wealth, you also want to enjoy it. And if you're not
100%.
truly enjoying it, what good is it? You know, is it?
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Like, you know, I feel that in my lifetime, I would consider myself a millionaire, not by my bank account, but my lifestyle. And the reason being is because where I came from to where I'm at, the the, the probability and the percentage of people that can actually do that are slim, especially from the lifestyle, from being behind bars, from flatlining and being with no heartbeat and health issues. And I could have had a million reasons of why I would fail in life, and I chose to succeed. And so now, because of my relationships, I have millionaire and billionaire friends of which otherwise I would never have these contacts in my phone on my contact list. And although I may not be business savvy in regards to what investments, stocks, bonds, real estate, or everything else that the average millionaire would know from an intellect perspective, I have a relationship with somebody that does do that, that I can call upon, and I can say, listen, I'm in this situation. I have got this amount of money. I have no idea what to do with it. Can you at least guide me? And whether or not I win or lose doesn't matter, but I trust that the relationship that I build from a millionaire mindset with a millionaire is going to help me get me to where I want to be, rather than going through the learning curve of having to figure it out by myself. And so there's a lot of factors that make somebody wealthy. And I believe that it's not money.
Great. Right. Amen. You say it well. We need to be wrapping this up. I really appreciate you being on the podcast, JJ. There's any kind of like last words, last piece of advice? I mean, one of the questions we ask people, what would you say to your 20-year-old self in the event you could say it to them, right? Go back, having had the perspective you have, go back and tell that person, make sure you do X, Y, Z. I mean, this take a couple minutes and kind of give us what your high level, best, wisest advice.
Okay. I love this question. It's always different. And I always make sure, because I'm always different when I'm in these situations and I'm always growing. Today, I would say this. I would tell my younger self, everything's a choice. It's your choice. Get rid of the blame and empower yourself through the good or the bad. If you can choose, you can win. If you choose to win, you will. If you choose to blame, you'll lose. You have to understand that the first thing that you must do is let go of your ego. You've got to have that ego death to understand that you're not here going to succeed by yourself, because success isn't achieved by a single individual. It's achieved by a group of people that believe in the same thing. And if you try to do everything by yourself, you're going to be on the fast track for failure or for loneliness. So choose to accept responsibility for all the good and all the bad. Don't blame parents. Don't blame circumstances. Don't blame generations, and don't blame the economy. But make the choice to always grow within yourself to become the person you're always meant to be.
Love that. Thank you so much, JJ. You're the man. Jason, anything you want to leave off?
I'm going to build on what JJ says. Take complete ownership of where you are and who you are. Once you get there, then you can start to build from there and make the choices to do whatever it is you want to do. I mean, JJ is a great example of the American dream, right? Has gone through the gamut and is doing very well, very influential and a good influence, right? at one point you had to come to grips. This is where I'm at, 100% my responsibility for where I'm at, what's happened, and I'm going to do better from there. That's what I would say. Back to you, Scott.
Love it. Love it. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.